Mason,
think
what's up, brother?
that's not bad. What's going
Good to
on?
see you.
Good to see you guys too.
So we just spoke to my brother Anthony, is always raving about you, all the things you got going on. So today's call, I know Paul has some questions to address, but like I would just love to know like a quick cap of one, like how you kind of got into this space, maybe how you met my brother Anthony and like what you're doing now. And then we could kind of go into some specific questions maybe that Paul has.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting into the space, I think honestly, it was through Wizard of Soho. He's a pretty big influencer, and he's been in the traditional finance space. So I had started following him when I was in college, learning about bonds. He was a macro trader, and then he started getting into crypto, and I was like, oh, he was yield farming on Pancake Swap, and this whole idea of like you were staking pancake tokens to earn syrup back, and it was like so foreign, but you were like making all this money. Like the APY was insane. I was like, what is this? I sat down and I was like reading through the white paper, and it was explaining it in terms of cake and syrup, and I'm like, what am I reading here? And then I got into let's set up a MetaMask and went onto the Binance Smart Chain and just like tried it out. And I think the first day I tried it with a small amount of money, like $300, I think, ape ape swap, the banana token. Next day I woke up, it was like 700. I'm like, what is this? This is the best thing I've ever found in my entire life. And then I just like got super into crypto and kind of messed around in DeFi for a while through like Tandy and other like I guess pancake clones, right? It was like a whole DeFi shitcoin era. And then when that kind of slowed down, I moved over to NFTs. And
Okay. And how did you end up meeting Mickey and my brother?
oh yeah, so I worked with one of Mickey's friends from high school, or from like your guys' hometown, Nate at Deutsche Bank, and he knew Mickey and I had a shared interest in the crypto space. So then he had introduced us, and Mickey and I just started talking and became friends. And then I met Anthony through Mickey, and then met you guys, and yeah.
What do you have going on right now? Anthony said you have a team, you're working with a bunch of different people, bunch of projects. What do you have going on now?
A few different things going on right now. Anthony and I are kind of working on Hot Potato Gang. It's this NFT project that, I had been writing NFT research for Liquid Capital, which is Wizard of Soho's alpha chat, like paid alpha chat. Been doing that and had like my own channel for calling. Basically, I focused on Solana NFT projects. And a bunch of us in the chat had like decided to buy this Hot Potato project, very degen play. We were just like gambling with little amounts of money, messing around. So we kind of got into it. The art was good. And then the founder found out later, like he was from Eastern Europe, and he didn't realize he was starting a business when he launched this NFT project. So he kind of got overwhelmed and shut down the Discord. Mm-hmm. So I was like, hey, like I want this. Like, a bunch of people in my chat have potatoes, and I have a vested interest, and I think I could do something cool with this. So I reached out to him on Twitter and took that over. So, Anthony and I had just been kind of trying to figure out ways to add value back to that project, and, building out the community, Twitter accounts, figuring out how to structure there's remaining mints left, doing that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Anthony said you also have a podcast going as well. What's the podcast about?
So we're actually starting that tomorrow. I'm going to do, we're going to be doing a podcast about like crypto stories, rugs. Like I think we're gonna call it Ben Rugged Radio. Kind of like these outrageous stories that we have, like these schemes that people have stolen money, or that we've been involved in rug pulls, and these like absolutely ridiculous stories that people that are not in the crypto space would not believe if you told them.
So so you plan on scaring the shit out of everyone.
That was just like a kind of documenting the early days, and hopefully it's a little educational. Like, but this is
what
the kind
of
sketchy stuff. Yeah, like if you see a founder doing this, like take that. Yeah, that's happened before, right? It's not the first person to do that. So,
who's like your top 3 that you would love to have on your podcast? Guess.
Top 3. That's a really good question. I honestly haven't gotten that far.
Give me one. Who's the one person that you thought about being on there that you would like? I would love to talk to this individual.
Oh, I mean, of course, I would love to talk to Do Kwon, the king of rug pulls, right? I just want to hear. I would love to hear like his side of why he thought that the algorithmic stablecoin was going to work this time, and how he thought that like people weren't going to attack the peg, and just like how he can continue to promise 19% APY or APR on a stable coin, and like try how he convinced himself that that was a realistic.
Has he ever done an interview about that?
He did it. He did an interview, and it was on a paid site. I forget which one. I saw like the clip of it, but the reviews I read of the interview is that they didn't ask any like the hard hitting questions. Right? It was pretty much just like
they pussyfooted around everything.
Yeah, they let him lead the conversation of what he was going to say.
All right. I mean, Paul, what do you got? I know you have some things you want to hear about Mason. What do you got?
Yeah, the whole Do Kwon thing. There's a cool article in New York Magazine about the 3 Hours Capital guys, like really long article that talks about everything. That's also really interesting. What Do Kwon did is out of control. But the thing about it is you respect the balls of somebody like that almost. It's like so completely, it's so completely irresponsible and out of control that I have some respect for the insanity of a person like that to even attempt that. If that even sounds positive, it's not, but like, it's just how I think about it. But even worse was the stable coin, I forget the name, that was promising 30%, not 20%, during the time that Luna was collapsing. And those guys were still moving forward with that, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So
I think it was USDD, right?
That probably it. But it's like, that's like even more of like in your face, like this is not going to work. We're making a 30% promise instead of a 20. By the way, the 20% one is blowing up the world right now, but we're still going to try and pull it off at 30.
Yeah. I actually have a little like a story. I think, months before the downfall of Luna and the, Terra, I was in Texas at a bachelor party, and I met this guy, and we were chatting about crypto, and he had told me he's like, I put my entire life savings into Terra, into the stable coin, and then he leveraged the stable coin, and he was holding 100,000 Luna, and like that was all he had. And I said those same things to him. I said, okay, you're earning 19%. How? Well, I don't know. I said, okay, that's an issue. Like, where is it coming from? How is it sustainable? I have no idea. I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't have your life savings in something that you can't understand. And I told him to diversify out, and I saw a DPEG, and I messaged him, and I was like, bro, you gotta get out of here. But he was too leveraged. All these people were too leveraged on this 19%.
I'll tell you what, and this comes with the value of listening to podcasts like this and talking to people like you did, is we're setting up a fund. And part of setting up a fund, you have to have a custody agent, or people are not going to give you assets, or anybody real, like an institution, is not going to give you assets unless they know that you have somebody custodying those assets, right? So while I was doing that investigation, I went to a talk in New York City at the Equinox Hotel, which was dope, on one of their top floors, hosted by Copper. Copper is like one of the premier custody agents now for Web3, primarily crypto right now, and they're adopting NFTs too. But this was before Luna, and this was before Celsius. And from that conference, just talking to a buddy of mine, he was like, dude, Celsius does some shady shit. And I had money in Celsius, and I know who had people in Luna. So just from that little convo, or like hearing something like that on a podcast, I pulled out all my Bitcoin from Celsius and like avoided that whole disaster. And it still took me like almost a week and a half for them to actually give me my Bitcoin back, which like in Web3 is like, it should take 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then Luna. So like what I've noticed, the problem with most rookies to the space have that don't come from traditional finance is nobody sells anything, right? So diamond hands, whatever. But if you were in Luna, you could have gotten out at a 10% loss for 24 hours. You know what I mean? And if you had your money in Luna for 12 months prior to that, you would have made money. Because if you were earning 20%, right, that one day, that whole Luna unravel took like 2.5 days. But the first day, it was like down to 90 cents on the dollar, and you could have gotten out all day long, right? So like when you see something like that happen, why sit there and wait for the thing to go to zero? So like listening to little clues, listening to podcasts, talking to people, I mean, they could go a long way. Anyway, that's my comment, but I have some more questions for you. So when all the stuff you were doing in DeFi, where do you live? You don't live in New York then, right?
At that point, I had not lived in New York. I was in Florida.
Oh yeah. I mean, because I'm totally jealous of that, because all the stuff you were doing then, I live in New York and I was handcuffed. So like that was a major disadvantage just of like being in New York. And I actually have 2 friends who moved to Florida for crypto, to do stuff. That's how insane
Yeah.
they were going about it. But the stuff you talked about Potatoes Gang, right? Is that the right name?
Yeah, Hot Potato Gang. Yeah.
Hot Potato Gang, sorry. So that's super interesting. I know Anthony calls that distressed assets, but you're basically taking a project, I don't know if it was rugged or not, but a project that's in the dumps that looks like it's going nowhere. And now you are basically, it's almost like a distressed asset fund. They come in, they buy, the debt of companies and they look to turn them around,
Yeah.
or, so you're doing that with NFT projects. So like, what's the game plan to take a project like Potatoes, flip it around and make it, go up?
That's something obviously I've been thinking about a lot. My goal here, I think, is to, take it over, build it up, and then just kind of have like the royalty fees from those projects funnel back into Potatoes as residual income. And then once you build them back up, maybe, you have equity in the business through NFTs, and you start to, like, if you want to unwind your position, right? You start to sell those off, and then either you find a buyer. I mean, that's a market that can be made that I don't think is there yet. I mean, we've seen it happen with like Yuga Labs purchasing CryptoPunks and Meebits, but for smaller projects, I don't think, we haven't really seen that happen. Or you create like a DAO structure and then unwind it to the DAO and let the community carry the project forward.
How do you build it back up? Like, what's the
I mean, it just depends on what you want to do with it, right? So like you can take pieces off of the original roadmap if you think that there's some value add in that roadmap there and adjust it, or it's almost a blank canvas. Like you can change a project's roadmap to whatever you want to do with it. You could make it just an art project if it has exceptionally good art and like try and do some streetwear stuff with it, or you could make it another, maybe it doesn't do distressed assets, but it does some other kind of financial stuff. It could be a marketing agency or something like that, right? Like you could do like a little consultant marketing agency, and the funds flow back into that NFT project or whatever. I mean, there's so many ways to, I mean, I was even thinking of ways to combine two projects together and take the best parts out of each and make like, little sub DAOs or something like that makes people excited.
So you already took over Hot Potatoes a while ago, right?
Yeah, I think I've had Hot Potatoes for like a month, 2 months, 2 months,
So
3 months.
What have you done with that project so far since you've taken it over?
We've kind of rebuilt the website. We've kind of revamped the Twitter, rebuilt the Discord to try and, say we're not dead. And we've really been, I've been working on it with my co-founder Hodl. We've been working on kind of like a model on how to evaluate these other projects, right? Like, what are we willing to go in and pay for this? Should we trade it? Is there ways to like judge multiples? One big thing that I've been trying to personally figure out is how much is a Twitter follower worth? How much is a like worth? You get 75,000 views on your little trailer for your NFT project. What does that translate to? How much does that make this company worth? Because you can't see cash flow, right? It's like really hard to see cash flow outside of royalties. So that's kind of what we've been working on. Our dev Ty, he did the website. We've been working on the mint. So there's 1,300 out of 6,000 minted total. I think we are going to cap the mint at 3,000 on Solana and then open the other 3,000 to Ethereum and have a cross-chain project. So we're not limited to only Solana or only Ethereum.
Wow, interesting. I actually haven't heard of that.
It's kind of new. I'm friends with the guys from Matrica. I had met them at a party, and they do all the Discord verification for Solana. So like, when you have a Solana NFT and you go into a Discord and you verify it through your wallet, like they use Matrica most likely, but they're adding ETH as well. And I've seen the big ETH one, Collabland, I think added Solana. So I was in a Discord where they had two collections, one on ETH, one on Sol. And whenever you would just select which chain you had your NFT on, it would verify you, and then it would put like a Sol or an ETH logo next to your name in the Discord, and everyone was together. Like it was Sol and ETH in the same space, and I think that's just really cool.
Actually, we did mint one of the Biggie Smalls project from One Of on their own platform. They give you the option of paying in Matic, in ETH, or in USD. So I guess that's kind of cross-chain as well, right?
Yeah. So on that topic, our developer, he actually just won the hackathon for Crossmint. And Crossmint, like you can mint with a credit card and just straight on chain, or you can like you can buy on Magic Eden now, you can buy Sol projects with ETH, and there's a lot of that stuff going on, right? So everything's mixing together. Crossman's great. I'm really excited about that. Like when you buy it on a credit card, you don't even have to connect your wallet or anything. It just puts it in a custodial wallet for you, and you can go in and get it out, or you can just put in your wallet address and it'll directly send it to you.
And I don't know
which I think is really cool.
But H&T Helium moved to the Solana chain.
Did they move? I know they were voting to move. Did the vote pass?
I read an article yesterday, so I don't know with 100% certainty, but it looks like that's happening.
That's really good because I have like 40 H&T miners that were worthless because that blockchain was so bad.
We have some also.
Yeah, the blockchain was just, they just messed up the chain. So hopefully they get on Sol, and like, people are gonna give me crap for saying a chain that functions, because there are issues with Solana where it's shut down a few different times, but it functions better than in the H&T blockchain. So I can say that with fact.
Do you have 40 miners deployed, or you just have 40 miners?
I think we don't have all 40 of them deployed. So they're back home in my hometown in Illinois. And my dad kind of deals with that. So just because there's no reason to put a miner in New York City, like I looked, you know how you can look at the map to see who's in your hexagon? Right. There's like 40 of them in my hexagon. It's pointless. But I think we have like 13 to 15 deployed. And then when H&T, the crash was happening, it took so long to get. We ordered last February and we didn't get them till like December.
Right.
Yeah.
Same here. We ordered last summer and didn't get them till this summer. Mm-hmm. But we did put one in. Mario lives in Stamford, Connecticut, or did. And he had, it's less than New York City, not 40, but there was like 6 people in his hex, or 7. And because he lived on the 6th floor, we put his in his apartment outside on his patio, and it worked well. We were kind of concentrating on trying to get them up on people's roofs, which takes like an electrician and an install a little more.
That's our thing. Yeah.
What are you mining per day?
Honestly, I'd have to ask my dad. I haven't like really messed with it, but my dad's a commercial real estate developer. So we had been putting them on top of all of our buildings, kind of making our own thing in central Illinois where nobody's doing it. So we had kind of made our own little network, and then friends through there, and we were, wiring them on top of houses and stuff. So, big antennas, the whole thing, but they kept relaying. That's the issue with the blockchain, is that they just kept disconnecting from that H&T chain, and then they weren't earning. And I haven't looked. Yeah,
a lot of maintenance for sure. I had one on my parents' roof, and we didn't have it hardwired because, you don't want to impose on everybody either. You're kind of like asking friends and family to put this weird thing on their roof, right? And then, but on that one, the Wi-Fi keeps dropping. Every time the Wi-Fi drops, you have to go on the roof. There is a lot of stuff involved for sure. But Solana, so I know you and I have had a couple conversations, and we met at NYC NFT week, right? And I know you're all about Solana, right? So, tell us about a little of the reasons why you're drawn to Solana. I am as well. I know there's Aptos now, which you turned me onto, or just, turned me onto reading about. So tell us, what brought you but towards Solana versus Ethereum.
Yeah. So when I was finishing up, DeFi, and I was ready to move into NFTs, I looked, this was like peak NFT time on ETH. So gas was insane. It was so saturated. I didn't know anything about it. And then I found Solana, and I was like, okay, like fees are nothing. These projects cost less. There's less of them for me to look through. I can get in early here. It was like an emerging market play. It felt like an emerging market. To be honest, all of NFTs are essentially an emerging market, but that specifically felt much easier to just get into without needing a huge capital injection to buy a blue chip or something like that. DGods were 4 when I was there. I can go into any, at least I could. I kind of stepped back from NFTs with the crash, but when I was like in the Discords grinding every single day, I could go into the Discord and say, okay, I know these people that are in here. I know what kind of projects they invest in. Like, I've seen them in other Discords before. Is this worth my time? Is this not worth my time? It was just like way easier to navigate, I felt like, than ETH, where there's just a lot of whale money that like I just can't compete with at this time. That was mainly the reason. And there was nobody else doing it. So I could kind of make a name for myself as far as like in a liquid capital. Like, I was focused on the Sol projects. There was big projects coming out. Like, okay, Bears was fantastic for like notoriety to the chain.
Yeah, I agree. Just by using it, when people ask me, just using it compared to Ethereum, it's just like a pleasure to use versus, yesterday we did a loan on Niftify, and I had to move some Ethereum around between our own wallets and then convert ETH to wrapped ETH. And just like it hurts me paying the fees. It just really does. It's like $8 to take your own money and to put it in your left pocket to your right pocket, then to convert that and wrap it. Here's another $8, and now it's $12, and it drives me insane.
Like you mentioned, easier to use too. Like I've kind of said this before, to where Apple or not Apple, MetaMask is like Android, and Phantom is like iOS for Apple, right? Like every app on Solana feels like it's coded better on the front end, and it just feels nicer to use than the Ethereum apps.
I agree with the second half of your analogy, because I'm an Android guy, not an Apple guy. Mario on that, but I get the point you're trying to make.
Yeah.
How about here's probably my last question, Mario, but how about Aptos? You sent that over. That looks pretty cool. Anything that SPF is involved with has my attention, but anything interesting there?
I've been hearing a lot of stuff about it. Like I'm in California, so I haven't had a chance to really sit down. Like I know Ty is going to look into it for me, because like we're looking at running nodes, which requires Amazon web servers and just stuff that on the technical side I'm not overly familiar with. But I've been hearing so much stuff about Aptos, right? It's on the test net, but there are already people that are trying to launch NFTs. I'm hearing about the first NFT marketplace. I'm like, how are you guys even doing this? Like, it's like none of this is even built out yet. But I mean, that's definitely one of the most hyped coins. And there's another one, Arbitrarium. Arbitrarium is another one that people are trying to farm for, like the airdrop, that are supposed to be low fees, high amount of transactions and stuff like that.
And Aptos is its own new layer one, right?
Yeah, it's its own new layer one.
The way I view it,
pretty much like Solana.
Right, Solana, but like an upgraded version of Solana, pretty much.
Supposedly,
right?
Yeah.
Correcting the problems of like the spamming and all that kind of stuff, and more throughput. Like I think Solana is like 50,000 a second, and this I saw like 150, 200,000 if I'm right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, can it function at those speeds on a main net with real money on it? And that's, I'm sure, like Solana's in beta, just like problems come up, and that was always my thing when people worry like, oh, Solana network went down due to overactivity and just too much activity, couldn't handle it. It's like, okay, it's in beta, but when you put real money on it, like you don't get a beta, right? Like people don't give you the grace of a beta period when you have real financial transactions taking place. Sure. Right now in testnet for Aptos, like, sure, it looks great, but let's see what happens when it's on the real network. But I'm still bullish on it.
And interesting to see how, if their throughput is increasing from Solana, how the spam problem would get better, not worse, right? So that would be cool.
Yeah.
But Mario, I know that this has probably been like pretty technical and high level convo, so I don't know if you want to bring us back down or if you have any questions.
No, I think that this is great. This is probably for a little bit a different of an audience, right, than what our normal stuff is about. But this is all great information, high level stuff. Mason, one thing I would like to say, I do own a marketing company. I do like to study metrics and things like that. So you were talking about maybe developing a point system, for likes, views, etc. I would love to sit in on a conversation with that, see how you do it, offer my 2 cents if you're interested.
I would love to. It's just been me doing it, so I would love any input, because I'm racking my brain trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I'd probably be able to help the most with Instagram, because that's where my business lives, and that's where I had the most success. But it's something that we can easily kind of figure out. It's not easy to figure out, but we can come up with things that may work well in a point system. So I'd be happy to help there.
Yeah, absolutely. The Instagram side of it. Unfortunately, we're not seeing NFT projects really utilizing Instagram yet. I think that's definitely an untapped area for these projects. Like, people use it, but it's not nearly the engagement that you see on Twitter. And I would be interested to hear your thoughts on maybe a way for projects to use that platform more to maybe get the less crypto savvy people involved.
Yeah, Twitter to me is, I can't figure out what people love about it. It's a boring platform. It's literally words. I mean, people spend time on Instagram because it's entertaining, right? There's video, you're doing a project right now. There's so much that you could be doing with it. To me, I find it a way more entertaining platform. And you can mix in all of this educational stuff in an entertaining way. But I also do believe that like views right now, all this, I think it's all bullshit, right? Like I've actually seen some of my clients get more likes than they did views. How is that possible? Right? Like Instagram
Yeah,
is
there's a
trying to
lot of bots.
complete. And when I say Instagram, I also mean TikTok, both of these types of platforms. And I think TikTok's a great platform to be talking about this stuff because of the audience there. But it could be used. You can use the same content for TikTok and for Instagram. I'd see how it goes. But like to me, the most important metric, the one that always kills everything, are shares, right? Like if somebody's sharing your information, that means they found it valuable. And that's how things go viral, right? Because everybody's sharing it with their audience. So to me, if you get, and there are formulas or ways to kind of create content that's more shareable than likable, right? And there's ways to create content that will create more comments than anything else, controversy and things like that. So yeah, I'd love to have a conversation. I think I could help in the area, like I said, of even though I'm just starting on TikTok, I get it. I understand what needs to happen, but Twitter is something I just haven't been able to figure out yet.
Hey, we were literally having a conversation, Mason, right before this, and I'll ask you for your opinion because we're going to start dropping some marketing, which is not even really marketing. It's doing stuff like this. It's just more educational and like giving attitude as we launch. But
yeah,
we were talking about what's our demographic or like what's our target audience? Is it Web 2 or Web 3? And you guys just made me realize here, like maybe it's just the medium, Mario. Like you put Web 2 stuff out on Instagram and you put Web 3 stuff out on Twitter because that's where those people are.
Yeah, very
I just
smart.
thought of it while we were talking. Yeah.
No, very smart.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, right? Like, and I had this conversation with Anthony like a little bit yesterday, talking about a project that we're kind of looking at. It's like how it's something that we think could onboard masses to the space. So do you isolate the Web3 community first? Like, do you put it out directly towards Web2 consumers, or do you try and get it popular in the Web3 community and then explain the reach of it to Web2, right? Like, who do you focus on or stuff like that?
How do you even define what Web 2 versus Web 3 person is? Is a Web 3 person just a Web 2 person who educated themselves? Like at what point do you become Web 3, right? As soon as you purchase your first NFT, you're officially Web 3. That's cool too.
When you know what the terms are, when you stop calling an NFT a JPEG, like it's not just cut and dry, right? But I'm getting into it or I've been in it and I need to upgrade, right? That's really what it is.
Very appreciative of you doing this with us. You're our first podcast guest. So
thanks for having me, guys. This was great. No, the conversations are great.